For 3 hours, the country went silent. Not literally, of course. The world outside the theater continued being as loud and divided and overheated and impossible as it had been when I walked in. But inside the Tennessee Aquarium IMAX in Chattanooga, hundreds of us sat together in the dark and looked up. That may sound like an ordinary thing. I think once it was. Now it feels almost miraculous. Over the past year, those of us working in the arts have been asked again and again and again what America should celebrate for its 250th anniversary. What deserves a grant? What is worth preserving? Where should we put our time and money and attention? And after seeing the Odyssey projected from 15 perf 70 millimeter IMAX film, as Nolan intended, I kept returning to the same answer. This is something we're celebrating. This is something I want us to keep alive for another 250 years. Cinema was not invented in America, but the great American movie house. You know, the marquee glowing above the sidewalk, the oversized soda, the popcorn, that blast of air conditioning in the middle of July, the collective gasp of a full audience. It became one of our defining cultural rituals. Hollywood turned movies into one of America's greatest and most influential art forms. We sent our dreams, our fears, our fashions, our politics, monsters, and heroes, and ideas about ourselves flickering across screens around the world. And yes, cinema is inherently political, always has been. The Odyssey itself takes an ancient story and finds something urgently modern inside of it. But what affected me most opening day was not the novelty of hearing a political message in an old text. It was the experience of being part of an audience, of feeling briefly that a movie belonged to everybody. We have more to watch than at any other point in history. You know, I can sit at home and find films and television from nearly every genre, every country, decade, and budget imaginable. That abundance is extraordinary, and I would never want to surrender it, but abundance has also scattered us. We no longer watch the same few channels or reliably arrive at work the next morning ready to talk about the same episode. That water cooler moment has fractured into 1,000 smaller conversations. Each is happening on a different platform, at a different time, and amongst people who may never cross paths in real life. Every once in a while, though, something breaks through. Even people who have no intention of seeing the Odyssey know about the Odyssey. It's on television and across websites. It's in our group chats. It's on everybody's list of things to discuss. People are planning trips around it. They're studying aspect ratios and learning what 50/70 means. They're driving across state lines to sit inside one of the few theaters capable of presenting the film in its fullest form. For a moment, a movie has become a common point of reference again. Some have treated that scarcity of those screenings as proof that making the film this way was elitist, that creating something only a limited number of theaters can properly exhibit is somehow opposed to accessibility. I keep thinking this is the wrong conclusion. The question should not be why an artist chose to work in a rare and difficult medium. The question should be, why have we allowed infrastructure needed to experience that medium to disappear? Why are there so few working projectors? Why are there so few people trained to operate them? Why have we accepted the loss of movie houses and projection booths, laboratories, equipment, and skilled jobs as though obsolescence were a law of nature rather than a series of choices? The demand is plainly there. Audiences want to see film projected from film. They want the scale and that texture, that mechanical hum, the tiny imperfections, that knowledge that light is passing through a physical image above their heads. They want an experience that their televisions can't reproduce. The answer to that desire should not be to scold a filmmaker for reminding us what had been lost, but it should be to bring projectors out of storage, repair them, train projectionists, and make the experience less rare next time. At a moment when so many conversations about art and labor are dominated by artificial intelligence, automation, and the disappearance of human jobs, here is a form of filmmaking that requires people. It requires craftspeople and technicians and laboratory workers, projectionists, archivists, and theater employees. It requires knowledge to be passed from one person to another. It requires somebody to care for the machine and somebody else to keep the lights down. That afternoon in Tennessee, the film began to move through the projector. The enormous screen filled our field of vision. The summer heat disappeared. The outside world kind of disappeared with it. And for 3 hours, we shared a story that has survived for thousands of years through an artistic medium barely a century old. I felt connected to the audiences who once filled the great movie palaces, and for a little while, cinema felt epic again. Long live movies!